they're up there as part of the great cloud of witnesses, and they're looking down on us, and for some reason they feel the need to reach out. Hello, my fellow saints in progress. This is Mike from Catholic Treehouse, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 25 of the Saint in Progress podcast, your source for inspiration, information, and directions for your soul's journey back home to the Father's house. As always, you can find us at catholictreehouse.com or saintinprogress.com and on Substack. So, I don't know about the rest of you, but it has been a week of pretty substantial rain here in central Ohio. There's a leak in the roof of my wife's car, and that wound up dumping about an inch of water into her WeatherTech floor mats. Now, it's not the sunroof, I know that much. It's something else that I did track it down, but I need to go fix. Let me tell you, it's the joys of owning a 13-year-old car, right? I mean, yeah, it's paid for, which is great, especially in this day and age, as expensive as cars are. But let me tell you, if your car is newer than ours, once you get past the 10-year mark, if you're hanging on to your car, things like seals and rubber and plastic start cracking, getting brittle and that. And, if you can, afford a new car or a newer car, God bless you, really, because you don't have to deal with these kinds of problems. But I will say this much from personal experience. WeatherTech floor mats do live up to the hype and the advertisements. I mean, there is no joke about an inch of water on her floor mat and the carpet underneath was bone dry. I fully recommend WeatherTech floor mats. Hands down, best floor mats ever. Now, WeatherTech is not a sponsor of the show or anything. As a matter of fact, they don't have any sponsors, just paid supporters. So let me give a big thank you at this point in time for everyone who does support this show. And I'll tell you something else, speaking of supporters and all that. I'm getting tired of having ads in my favorite podcasts, especially the ones who have paid supporters on sites like Substack or Patreon or Locals or whatever. I mean, I get it. You have to keep the lights on, but my gosh, I can't put on a podcast anymore without listening to ads for apps or nutritional supplements or online psychiatrists or something. I don't know about you, but I feel like you can't turn on anything. TV, movie, podcast, website, whatever, without some sort of advertising following you around, trying to separate you from your money. And don't get me wrong, Catholic Treehouse is a business, and I would really love it if you supported us by buying one of the products. And I like to remind people every now and then that we have things like books and rosaries and whatever, but I don't want to hit you over the head with all of that, right? I don't believe in the oppressive marketing that a lot of places are doing. But it's gotten to the point where, like, if it's not an ad, it's a product placement. And like, for instance, that movie Twisters, like the reboot of the original, the one that came out last year. I mean, that one was a cooperative venture between the movie company and Chrysler. And that's why you have the red Ram truck and all the Chrysler products in every scene. Now, I'm sure every beverage they drink and food they eat also is a product placement. And by the way, if you haven't seen the Twisters reboot, I'll save you the 2 hours. I thought the original was way better. So anyway, there are times when I just feel like I'm being stalked by all the commercials and ads and all that stuff. And that actually ends up being a good segue into what I want to talk about this week, which is being stalked by a saint. So we were made to go through this trial on earth with our destination, the endpoint, being heaven, the Father's house, right? That's what this entire podcast is about, is the journey back home. And ultimately, God wants us up there in heaven with him. And not only that, but there's also the great cloud of witnesses that St. Paul talks about that also want us up there with them, joining in the great cloud of witnesses. So there are times during this journey where some of those people who are already there are trying to reach out to us. Now, maybe God is specifically telling them to reach out to us, or maybe it's just that they're up there as part of the great cloud of witnesses, and they're looking down on us, and for some reason they feel the need to reach out because they want us to be helped by them somehow, by their intercession. So whatever the case, I'll just say that our friends in heaven can and do reach out if you're paying attention. Okay. Well, I should say, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that they're reaching out. I mean, they're constantly reaching out. The question is, are you paying attention to them? So let me just say that I've been stalked several times in the past. First was St. Anthony, who was my confirmation saint. He stalked me until my wife and I officially made him our family's patron saint, and he continues to make his prayers on our behalf known. And then I was stalked by Mother Cabrini, who kept showing up until I published her letters, and I know that she continues to pray for me and my family because she continues to show up here and there and make it known that, yes, she's praying for me. I've also been stalked by St. Gemma Galgani and St. Titus Brandsma. And now I'm being stalked by St. Thérèse of Lisieux. So what does saintly stalking look like? How do you recognize it? Well, I'll tell you about my experiences, and I'll just focus on the most recent one with St. Thérèse of Lisieux. But in general, they kind of look like this, where the same saint keeps popping up in your life multiple times in a very short span of time, okay? So Saint Therese, she's also known as the Little Flower, or Saint Therese of the Child Jesus. She was a Carmelite nun and mystic, and she was named a doctor of the church by Saint Pope John Paul II. So here's her entry from the Saint Challenge on her feast day, which is October 1st. In 1873, Marie-Françoise Therese Martin was born into a very devout family in France. Just after she turned 4, her mother died, and her father, a watchmaker, moved the family to Lisieux, where she was taught by Benedictine nuns. At the age of 7, she was too young to follow her older sisters and join the Carmelite order, but during a pilgrimage to Italy 3 years later, she asked Pope Leo XIII for, and received, permission to join when she was 15. Therese admires St. Teresa of Avila, enjoyed the contemplative life, and her prioress instructed Therese to write her autobiography. Shortly after it was finished, she contracted tuberculosis and suffered joyfully until she died in obscurity at only 24. Now, as her superior who told St. Therese to write her autobiography, which is called The Story of a Soul. So, if it weren't for her writing that book, she would have stayed unknown, probably wouldn't have been a canonized saint, and definitely wouldn't be recognized as a doctor of the church, which means that she would have had zero impact on, well, anyone. So, ultimately, she was obedient to her superior. She wrote the book, and because of that, millions of people have been impacted by it. Now, I picked up The Story of a Soul a few years ago, and like most books I buy, it sat around for a while waiting to be read. I have at any given time anywhere from 6 to 10 books that I'm reading at the same time. Now, that's not to brag. It's more of a curse. You see, I keep starting new books before I finish existing ones that I already have in progress. So anyway, I started reading it sometime last year, got maybe 30 pages in, and she's still talking about her childhood, and I got distracted by other bright, shiny books. Well, over the past few months, she's been showing up everywhere in my life. Our pastor put a new statue of her in the hallway. I noticed for the first time ever that the statue of her that we have in the nave of our church is right across from our row of pews. Now, I should point out that we sit on the Mary side. We've always sat on the Mary side. And right above our pew is a statue of Mother Cabrini, which is part of the story of how Mother Cabrini was stalking me. But I'll leave that story for a different time. So anyway, over on the St. Joseph side, there's St. Thérèse of Lisieux looking down, right across the pews over at us. So I just noticed that like a week ago. So she's also been mentioned in no fewer than 3 podcast episodes from 3 different podcasters that I've listened to over the past 2 weeks. So I decided, you know what? Let me just pick the book back up again and start reading it again. Pick it up right where I left off. And then this past weekend, my brother-in-law and his wife came over to give our kids their birthday presents. Now, they're not Catholic, but they brought the gifts in a gift bag with St. Thérèse of Lisieux on it that my sister-in-law got at the thrift store. And the lady working there said, "Here, I'll give you a fancy bag." And next thing you know, St. Therese was once again showing up in my life. So it's just incredible how all this stuff happens. I mean, literally within 2 or 3 weeks, all these things happened. So to me, that is a saint stalking episode. So I do want to read a little passage here from the book. It's really, really fantastic, just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that's in here. So at this point in time, she says that she was spending some time looking after 2 girls while their mother was sick. And she's talking about the experience and keeping in mind that The Story of a Soul is written to the Mother Superior of her convent. Okay? So here's what St. Thérèse of Lisieux writes. Those innocent souls were like soft wax on which any imprint could be stamped, of evil, alas, as well as of good. I understood the words of Jesus. If anyone hurts the conscience of one of these little ones, he had better have been drowned in the depths of the sea. Many, many souls would become most holy if they had been properly guided from the very start. I know God needs no help to carry out his work of sanctification. He lets a skilled gardener rear rare and delicate plants. He has given him the necessary knowledge, but he fertilizes them himself. That is exactly how he wishes to be helped in cultivating souls. What would happen if a clumsy gardener did not graft his trees properly, or if he tried to make roses bloom on a peach tree? I'm reminded now of a canary I had among my birds. It sang marvelously. I also had a linnet, of which I was particularly fond, as I'd had it since it was a fledgling. It had had no singing lessons from its parents, and heard nothing all day but the canary's song, so he tried to imitate him. Not very easy for a linnet. It was charming to watch the efforts of the little thing. It obviously found it extremely hard to make its own voice harmonize with the vibrant tones of its master, but to my great surprise, its song did in time become exactly like the canary's. You know, Mother, who has taught me to sing from childhood. You know who are the voices which charm me. In spite of all my frailty, I hope that one day I shall begin to sing eternally that canticle of love whose harmonious notes I so often heard down here below. How beautiful is that, right? So, what does St. Thérèse of Lisieux have to say to me? How should I pray to her? Well, time will tell. I'm only halfway through the book. It's about 160 pages long, and I'm on page like 85. What I'm trying to tell you, my fellow saints in progress, is this. Pay attention when these kind of things happen to you. They're not some sort of cosmic coincidence from the universe. Our friends in heaven, the great cloud of witnesses, they are praying for you. They want to help you. God wants them to be part of your life. Like any proud parent, God sees the good works of his children and takes pride in them. So these saints, they're up there actively being a part in your life because God takes pleasure in working through them to help you. When you recognize that a saint is stalking you, take notice. Thank them. Pick up a book about them. Get a saint medal of theirs or a prayer card. Pray a novena to them for a special intention that's weighing heavily on your heart right now. But whatever you do, don't ignore them. So let me ask, have you ever been stalked by a saint? Do you feel like a saint is stalking you right now? If you have a story to tell, be sure to drop it in the comments. And crikey, I'm getting all sorts of messages literally as I'm recording this. Everything's popping up all over my computer, my phone, whatever. Habemus Papem, we have a pope. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost has been elected and has taken the name Leo XIV. Literally breaking news as I'm recording this right now. I can only hope he follows the good works of his predecessor, Leo XIII. Time will tell. I can only pray, and as we should all pray, that he is the pope that we need, not the pope we deserve. I can tell you this much. I have no knowledge of who Cardinal Prevost is, so I have some homework to do, as do we all. Alrighty, my fellow saints in progress, that is it for this week. Have a blessed week, and as always, remember, you are a saint in progress, so go out there and be a saint.